Hi, everyone. Welcome to our next session. I'm very excited to introduce our next speaker, Diana Stepner. Diana has over 20 years of experience building and leading product teams, and now she focuses on coaching and helping ambitious product leaders unlock their full potential. She's the author of the book Next Gen Product Management, which we will be giving away free copies of. And she'll be speaking today about how product teams can translate top-level goals into team level execution. Super excited for it. Diana, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction, Sean. I'm looking forward to, being able to share with folks today, as well as to answer any questions you guys may have at the end. So just to get us started, a little bit about me. So my background is in user experience research. That's actually how I started in product management. I'm from Silicon Valley, so my whole, I guess, just upbringing is centered around technology. And then throughout my career, I have a business degree, so an MBA, and I've worked at small companies and big companies and digital agencies and everything in between. So that all combines to create, a typical unusual background that is product management. And as Sean said, I transitioned to be a product coach, and I also do fractional product work as well. And on the left is my dog, Lancaster. And sometimes he may join sessions. Hopefully he'll stay out of the one today. So I'd love to learn a bit more about you guys. If you guys can put into chat, what is your learning goal? What brought you to this session today? That will really help me. I'm always curious where people are joining from. And then if you want to share your LinkedIn or your best mode for connections, please do so. So let's take a minute or two and just answer these questions in chat. It'll help me to get to know you guys better. Awesome. Thank you, Sean. Wonderful. And for folks, I'm in San Francisco. So we got Rochester, New York, transitioning from product owner by way of helicopter pilot. Sounds like a very interesting story, Benjamin. SLC, awesome. Portugal, wonderful. We've got a whole range of folks from various parts of the world. Cool. Well, keep sharing. It's wonderful. If you want to put in your LinkedIn so folks could connect too, that would be brilliant. Loving seeing just all the places from around the world that folks are joining from. Cool. All right, to keep on going, and please continue sharing. I know this is a question, that I've been asked, before on both sides. Sometimes you're in a role and you've been told, be more strategic, and that's it. You're given that statement, the person leaves, you ask them for more clarity, they look at you like, don't you have all the answers? And that's frustrating because you're trying to figure out the context. And then oftentimes you'll be in a different situation and someone will tell you for doing the exact same thing, thanks for being strategic. And then they'll leave you wondering what's left. And so I've definitely developed this insight over time that strategy is very much context, person specific. And so what we're going to talk through today is an approach to weave in strategy into any environment that you're in, specifically looking across the product lifecycle, because there are just too many what ifs, there are too many variables that go into someone being strategic to say it's always this or always that. So what I'm going to give you today is just my viewpoint, my experience on how you can level up your strategy work and have it apply across any situation you find yourselves in. So we're going to have a poll. Sean's going to share a poll with us and would love to know what you all think. So the question there is, what does being strategic mean to you? So please choose your favorite option, and then we'll share the results back with you. Oh, excellent. If folks can vote, that would be great. And then Sean will give us the answers.
Lots of answers coming in. I'm going to give it another 10 seconds or so, and I'll share the results.
Perfect. Cool. And I know it's one of those situations where you wish it was multiple choice, but we're going to force you to pick an answer. Cool. Yeah, as you can see, there are a couple of answers that could have been right. And so again, that goes back to how being strategic tends to have a lot of context associated to it, whether it be the company, the person that you're working for, or just the situation, the environment that you find yourself in. I love the responses that people shared around making trade-offs and prioritizing. That's a lot of what we're going to cover today, and definitely helps inform if, a recommendation or an approach is seen as being strategic. Similar in regards to setting long-term direction and aligning team goals with company goals. Those are great answers and all come together to be strategic. And so I love the split across those because, again, there's so much variability on what strategic means. And so having the framework that we're going to go through today will help set you up, and then you can adapt it to your own environment. Thank you. Awesome. So, as I said, we're going to learn about how to approach strategy. And there are different ways you want to think about strategy depending on the stage that your product is at. And so that helps to inform, sometimes you may think more company, organizational specific. Sometimes you may think more product specific. And so we'll go through situations that will help you break that down. I'm also including a number of examples because there are a lot of different ways to present strategic assets or assets that help to form a strategy. I'm not going to go into detail in them all during this talk because it's just 30 minutes and I want to make sure I have time for your questions, but you will be getting the deck afterwards. And so you can go through, use the examples if you like, or just, use them as inspiration as you create your own. So if you see me skipping through something quickly, know it'll be there in the slides for you guys to be able to use as a reference point. So I always like starting, with what is and giving a definition. And so everybody has the same place that they're thinking about strategy, same definition that they're working towards. And, Michael Porter is a really well-known, speaker around strategy. I love his definitions, but what really stood out to me is that definition on the right. And that is something to keep in mind. Oftentimes, companies look at strategy as kind of throwing everything into the kitchen sink. And that's not the way strategy should be done. Strategy helps you to provide a framework and guidance, and that enables you to choose what not to do. And that's even more important than what you are going to do. Because I know as product folks, we're always asked to do more. There's always new, bright, shiny things that appear, but that strategy can help us better enable, better empower ourselves to be able to say no in a very polite way, of course. But the strategy gives us those guidelines, those frameworks to be able to say, no, that doesn't align, or not at this time, or we're addressing it in a different way. And that's really critical. So keep that in mind. Strategy isn't about doing everything, it's helping you to narrow your lens. And then a flip of that, what is not strategy? Equally important is our friend Good Strategy, Bad Strategy from Richard Rummelt. If you are a fan of Lenny's podcast, you may have heard it. If not, definitely recommend. He's a really great conversationalist. The book is amazing too. But as you can see here, his definition also helps us to narrow in on what strategy should be. And again, as I talked about earlier, strategy is going to have context associated with it to define specifically how you want to introduce it at your organization. But this also gives us more guidance around, it's not just a list. It's not just a list of words. It's not just a list of wishes that you have. It needs to be able to give us direction and guidance. And a list just really doesn't have that power. So what does that mean? It means that there's often a lot of ways that we do strategy that just don't fit well. They don't stick with the organization, they don't resonate. And so as you can see here, about 75% of organizations fail to implement their strategy. And the reasons here are just a sample. There are more than this, but I pulled in the top ones. And so, as Richard Rummel told us, you don't want it to be long and complicated. If it's vague and unclear, folks don't know what you're talking about. And so this gives us an understanding of what may cause some flaws or some cracks in strategies being implemented at an organization. And consequently, that may cause confusion, uncertainty, misalignment across product. The pieces that really stand out is when you bring them all together, what they create is a situation of confusion. And so we're going to get some feedback from you guys with poll 2 around how you see this all coming together. So perfect. Sean shared our second poll. And so want to hear from you guys around what does your organization struggle with the most? And maybe again, a lot of them. And so this time we've given you the opportunity to select a multiple choice because there are a lot of factors that often cause strategy to be a bit confusing, a bit wonky at an organization. So choose the ones that resonate with you or resonate with you in the situation you find yourself in today or at your most recent role.
Okay, about 10 more
Cool.
seconds here and we'll close it up.
Awesome. Thank you. Brilliant. Hopefully this is a bit cathartic for folks to be able to share out vague and unclear language, not revisited or reinforced. You guys are, yeah, you're reading my mind. Invisible to the front line, disconnected from team rituals. Looks like we got a whole bunch of them. And I hope this makes you feel heard, makes it feel a little bit better to know that you're not alone. So thank you. And I'm going to give you my view on that. One of the things that I've seen consistently, and you could see this in their responses, is that the strategy is often hidden. It's only visible to certain individuals, certain parts of the organization. One group may have a strategy that they practice, whereas another part of the group may have a totally different strategy. Or a CEO will give guidance, and each part of the organization puts their own lens on it. So when they get together and talk about strategy, they're coming with different views around what the definition or what the strategic direction really is. So this is what I've seen as one of the most comprehensive, most disabling, problems with strategy is that it doesn't have that visibility that it needs, that consistency because it's not visible, and that causes confusion across the organization. So how have I addressed this? And here are just some tips and tactics, and then I'll show you how I put these into motion. And so you want to make sure that when you're working on strategy, it's short and simple. And so I know one of my favorite prompts for ChatGPT was like, talk to me like I'm, 15 or talk to me like I'm 20. And so take a similar type of guise when you're talking about strategy, make it short and sweet. The other thing that I remember throughout my career, and I think someone from marketing told me this once, is you've got to repeat things. You've got to repeat things about 7 times for people to be able to retain it. And so that tied to ritual reinforces strategy isn't something that you flash onto a screen once, hope everybody has a photographic memory, and then walk away. You need to continually tie it into the rituals that you do across your business, whether that be quarterly planning, whether that be all hands. Find ways to weave it in and keep reinforcing it. The free of jargon goes in nicely. So you got a good bookends between short and simple and free of jargon. You want to make sure everybody is clear and understands the strategy. If folks need to put into, Claude what it means, you miss the boat. The other piece around it, and it goes back to what I said about visibility, it needs to be applicable across all teams. You don't want strategy broken up into a whole bunch of pieces, misinterpreted, kind of put together in a different way, because then you're having people heading in different directions. And that goes back to that last point, which I know folks probably, smile or giggle at, but oftentimes the strategy is, again, shared once, put into, a Google Drive or put into Notion or Coda or wherever your favorite place may be, and then no one can ever find it again. And so you want it to be visible, you want it to be easy to find so that you can use it in rituals, so that you can align teams. So all of these are factors to keep in mind when you think about how to put your strategy into action. Okay, So we've got what we want to do. Now let's put it into motion. There's a principle that I recommend called a strategy stack, and you can see the definition there on the right. But the key portions to notice is at the top is the organizational level, and underneath that is product. If you're in marketing or engineering, copy that product piece, do engineering, copying the product piece, do marketing, etc. But the key point is that laddering up. Product is not doing strategy on its own. It's leveraging and building on the work that the organization did. The arrows going down are going down for a specific reason. Everybody should have the same level of knowledge and insight from the mission, vision, strategy, goals. All of that then informs, from a product perspective, how we work, what our strategy is. So this is how I recommend taking a strategic approach across an organization. I will say in some situations, you'll find yourself missing that top part. The organization, the C-suite hasn't done a strategy. And so there are instances where product actually has to step up, or other parts of the business step up to be able to help define that organizational element that then is used across all parts of the business. So even if your organization hasn't done that top part, don't skip it. Take that as an opportunity for growth, for empowerment, work with other parts of your team or other cross-functional leads to be able to define that for the organization and then roll it out and be able to use it across different parts of the business. So first up, we got the organization. Again, should be starting with the organization to inform what we do at the product level. And I'm going to use an example of a healthcare company. This is a company that I worked at, and here's our mission. Our mission is very straight. It's very understandable. This is typically something that you share. It often does not change. There may be, a little asterisk there to ensure, everybody's using that same word, but the mission is what moves people forward. This is why we exist. That is what the company is about. So it should be consistent throughout the organization's history. The vision is longer. It is a rallying cry. I often refer to it as you're being a cheerleader. This is really exciting, empowering. It brings together all the actions and activities that you're going to do. This often stays internal. And you'll notice that 3 to 5 years, that's changing. I mean, as technology is evolving faster, your vision may actually be a little bit shorter. It used to be 5 or 10 years out. Now, because of tech and the rapid iterations that we're going through, the vision will probably last for 3 to 5 years. You'll get to a point where you've actually achieved the vision, and then you need to change or adjust. The vision also may have areas where you need to refine it, just based on the nuances that are happening in the business or government practices, etc. So keep in mind the vision may change, whereas the mission stays the same throughout the history of the organization. So how do you pull that together? I like this usage of a company's strategies and goals on a page. Because again, one of the key points that I highlighted earlier is that if the strategy isn't visible, people are not going to know what it is. And so as many places as you can tie things together and have it be clear and concise, the easier it is for people to reference, the easier it is for people to remember. And that's, again, why I really like that strategy stack. It just pulls it together into one page. So in the organization I was at, we took that principle to heart, and we had our company strategy and our goals on a page. And so we had the mission and vision that then informs the company strategy. So our company strategy is make it easier to run a private practice, become a better fit for large private practices. So all of those headings are our strategic pillars. That's what we're focusing on. And all of that is being done in support of achieving that vision and enabling us to work towards the mission that we have, the reason we're in business. Underneath that, we have the goals that we're going to be working towards. And these goals will change. Ours changed on a quarterly basis. Some companies might do it on a biannual basis. You need to choose what's right for you, but all the goals that the company has should ladder up to a strategic pillar. Again, those pillars should then be supporting the vision and the mission. This often is then what breaks into the pieces that each part of the business needs to support. So being able to achieve X% growth in practitioners per account, product has an aspect of that. Marketing has an aspect of that. And so the teams will come together to be able to support and achieve these goals. Then we get to the product bit. So giving a view of what we did within the company I was at, we had a lot of different product managers. We had a lot of different product managers because we had a portfolio. We didn't just have one product that we were serving to the market, we had multiple products. And so giving you this visibility because it's something to keep in mind. You might be in an organization where you have multiple product teams that work on different aspects of the portfolio. That's why I like having a vision for product, because that vision brings all the different parts of the product portfolio together. You may also do a vision because you want to have that, that cheerleading, that, really exciting call to action across the whole entire product team. That's another great way to do it. But if you don't have a vision, understandable, because you may be working underneath the guise of the company vision. That works too. But given my background, this example that I'm given, I recommend having a vision for the product team because it unites all the different parts of the portfolio under one umbrella. The other thing that I want to highlight is you don't have to do the vision on your own. Strategizer, Roman Pilcher, they all have amazing templates, and use them. You don't need to start from scratch, do a search, find the ones that really resonate with you. It then becomes an incredible interactive exercise that you can do with your team and get them aligned on the same page. And so I like Roman Pilchers. I use it constantly when I'm helping guide, product groups, and it really gives everybody an opportunity to feel heard. So here's some just examples. Again, the company's vision was quite, eloquent, had a lot of words to it. The product vision is tighter because we're focusing on one part of the business, but you can see some of the examples that we put forward. And, again, you can do dot voting to figure out what works best for you, but I just wanted to give you some examples to reference. Here's another way that it was put forward. So if you're lucky to have an amazing designer or you're incredible at all the AI generation tools, you can create a vision that really resonates, shows the different parts of the portfolio coming together and how they work. So you got your vision, then what happens next? Again, we're in a stack. Underneath the vision, you have the roadmap and the goals. These are just reminders. They build back to the pieces that we talked about earlier about what is and is not strategy. So these are just some items to keep in mind as you create the rest of the product strategy stack. Here's an example. Again, not going to go into it in detail, but this could be a template that you use for your own team to be able to create, that vision, the mission, tie it back to the goals. Here's another example that you can use. This one is, for those of us who are not necessarily designers or, are still working through how to get all of our assets to look amazing. So this is another example you can use. So what does it mean when your product is going through changes? You've still got that portion of the strategy stack that you're working on, but there are pieces that you'll need to revisit as your product goes through different life cycle stages. So for example, in the discover define, if you're at the early stage of your product development, you're really going to focus on ensuring that you're aligning tightly to the organizational part of the strategy stack because you're still figuring out what your product is about. And you can see here how different aspects of the strategy stack come into center stage depending on the life cycle portion that your product is in at that point in time. So just keep in mind the strategy stack, the aspects of it, especially from a product perspective, need to be adaptable given the stage that you're at. So what does this all mean for me? Great in regards to how to do things from the organization and from the product perspective. But what it enables you to do is to break these myths. Leaders are the only ones that are strategic. That's not true. Anyone can be strategic at any level. You just need the right context, the right framing. And so what I've given you is what's worked for me. Strategy is all about that voice, that person who stands in the front with the rallying cry. Yeah, that's part of it when you're trying to get everybody on board. But just speaking really well doesn't mean it's going to follow through. So that strategy is also about the communication and the execution too. And as I said, it's going to change depending on how the business evolves, depending on the stage of the product. So keep that in mind. You can't just put it on the shelf and walk away. It is something that you're going to need to revisit, especially those goals. So what you need to do to be more strategic, pulling it all together. Think about your organization, where it is in the context of its life cycle. It's not just about you, it's about the bigger picture. How can you enable the organization to be successful? The other facets I will keep in mind and recommend you do so too is there will be different definitions of what makes someone strategic depending on the organization. So get to know your leaders, get to know their styles, and that will help you be able to speak strategically to the ones in your business who are there to guide. And I also feel like making sure that you're thinking about the communication up as well as your team is really important. Let's say that you're not in a job, that you're searching for your next opportunity. There are ways that you can be strategic too. Build those connections, make sure that you're continuing to learn. And when you're thinking about your job search, dive into those areas that really resonate with you. Be strategic in the way that you approach your job search because that will help you find that best fit for you. So I know I didn't talk about AI except for a couple of times, so I feel like I need to just, check it off that list. But AI is more of an enabler. It doesn't change necessarily how we do strategy. It does mean that our strategy probably evolves faster than has it done before. It also means we need to adapt the way that we've done business. But what is strategic? How we do strategy remains the same. And so I just want to say that it gives us a lot of superpowers to be able to learn and research and do things at a rapid speed, but the principles of how you do strategy remain intact. So just wanted to say thank you. I know we have a couple of minutes for questions, so I will hand it over to Sean to open up the stage for questions, and thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, Diana. Super interesting talk there. And I think strategy, especially in product orgs, is like one of the most misunderstood slash most confusing elements of building and shipping products. So we had some great questions come in. We're going to get to maybe one or two of those quickly. If you have other questions for Diana, drop them in the chat. She can follow up with you one-on-one. The first is around changing strategy. So, any tips from your experience for handling a frequently changing organizational strategy as a product team?
Yeah, and I'm going to put my LinkedIn, in the chat so that, as Sean said, folks have questions, please reach out to me. So what I've found when strategy changes quite frequently within an organization, it often is an indication of misalignment. And so what I've done in the past is gathered all the variations of the strategy together. And I've shown people that, on Tuesday we had this, on Thursday we had this, because oftentimes they don't, one, acknowledge that there were other strategies that had been communicated. Other times they may not just be aware. And so by making them visible in one place, it helps people focus. It also brings to light the confusion that can be created by having different versions. So just making those different versions visible is really helpful. And then I've also taken that next step of aligning it, what I think the strategy should be. So taken those inputs, align them together and said, this is what I think the motion should be going forward. Let's align.
Gotcha. And as long as you have the vision and mission kind of behind that, that helps you, know where you're headed in the long term.
Exactly.
Quick question about responsibility for communicating strategy. So within the product org, is it the product leader at the end of the day that really needs to make sure everyone in product understands the strategy? Does product ops play a role in disseminating that strategy? Where does the buck stop with aligning on strategy?
Would say on alignment, it goes back to, the head of products, CPO, whatever your title may be. But I will say that it's the responsibility of everyone to be able to understand it and apply it. And so strategy is one of those points where if there are questions, ask them. Don't, guess or second guess yourself. Just put it out there because if you have a question, 99.9% chance someone else has a question too. So just ask it because you're going to be in meetings where you need to be able to communicate, convey the product strategy. So you want to ensure that you're doing so consistently and with confidence.
Yeah, totally makes sense. we're at time here. I will pass on any of these questions that came in late to Diana. Thank you,
Thank you.
Diana, for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for joining this session. Next up, we've got a great panel on managing portfolios of products, and we've got leaders from Carfax, Talogy, Forteller, and Copado. So let's jump over there and keep going. Thank you,
Thank you
Diana.
very much. Take care.